Hey everyone, Maurice is dangerous. More dangerous than we could have ever imagined. This seemingly harmless horse grazes all day by Clown's caravan, and no one blinks an eye. One day, Maurice just disappeared, and now he's just back again, and alive, and better than ever, and I don't buy it. Maurice is hiding something. Along with his return, we received a new skin for Dredge, a horse-based skin. Now, one thing I noticed immediately about this skin is that it doesn't really look like Maurice. It's deceiving maybe. It's a horse after all, and it has 3 eyes. There's not many of those around these days. As Maurice is the only horse in the realm, and also has 3 eyes, it seems like they would be the same. First off, Maurice is much larger when compared to Dredge Maurice. One of Maurice's clearest features is that half his body is burned. However, on Dredge Maurice, there is no clear side that is burnt over the other. Further inspecting Maurice's hooves, we can see that he doesn't have horseshoes installed. In Dredge's skin, we can see that the hooves do have horseshoes. These are typically nailed in when attached, and in Dredge's case are used as the weapon for the horse skin. The weapon part of the cosmetic even makes direct reference to this fact, and the fact that the shoes have been installed. Another, and maybe the most interesting difference, is that Maurice's eye is moving, and Dredge Maurice's is not. This third eye, in fact, is kind of the center of this theory, and maybe the most interesting thing about Maurice as a whole. Maurice has a third eye, if you hadn't noticed, and it's maybe his most distinguishing feature, what with most horses typically having just the 2. The third eye is often associated with things like enlightenment, or a higher perception beyond that of a regular thing. It has associations too with things like clairvoyance, and probably most importantly, out-of-body experiences. This is where it gets interesting. Maurice, as a horse, has the struggle of only being capable of doing things a horse can do. The most logical thing he would intend to do with this power, therefore, is to somehow make himself more able and more powerful and capable. We know that the fog is considered an extension of the entity, and the fog itself is alive in that sense. We also know that the fog is rich with auric particles, which is the cause for the observer's ability to investigate it, and discover so many of the memories of those from within the realm. We also know that when you're able to connect with the fog, it allows you to create certain things. For killers, this often comes in the form of the iridescent add-ons, which seem to be crafted by the entity and gifted to them, said to be forged of the fog itself. However, this is not an exclusive ability to that of the entity, but instead just a thing that can be done if you have a good enough understanding of the fog. We can presume the observer's Auris is possibly a creation of the fog, a reason for its ability to look into it. And further, it's possible that his tower was kept safe for so long as a result of some kind of protection spell, or a previous observer bending the fog to their will, to redirect it away from the tower, keeping the inhabitant hidden and safe. Another more grounded reference of this is with Vigo. This is suggested in the Engineer's Toolbox and Rainbow Map, which are both seemingly creations of Vigo, and there is mention of them simply being poor replicas of what was once very powerful, or likely the equivalent of iridescent add-ons, iridescent toolboxes, and maps that gave detailed layouts of trial grounds, these things peering in the fog itself to provide powerful information. Where am I going with all this? Well, my point is that the fog is powerful, and if you're able, you can bend it to your will to create powerful tools, or gain information from the fog itself. You can discover the memories of survivors, and craft iridescent tools. Maurice's third eye was given to him by the entity. After entering the fog, burned him and blinded him. From what we know of third eyes, and it being a product of the entity's own creation, it would seem likely to me that Maurice would be able to see beyond and into the fog, able to experience the memories of all of the characters within, much like the observer did. From here, he would be able to collect lots of information and become increasingly more intelligent and advanced, all whilst casually sitting outside the Clown's caravan. It's during this time prior to his removal that I think Maurice had grown incredibly powerful, and had likely even forged some allies within the fog. The biggest connection would be to the survivors. The survivors love Maurice after all, and most probably have a good connection with him. A large, wild creature that isn't violent and doesn't want to attack them. There's gotta be a reason for that. Most notably, Michaela Reed, our resident witch. and Boon Doer. One of the only present magics beyond the entity's own are the boons and the hexes, and each are capable of genuine power, in their own respects. You may be wondering how Maurice managed to obtain such an ally. Well, first of all, after looking into the fog, he likely had a good understanding of both Michaela, but also human language. After all, we're talking about an ascendant mega-intelligent horse here, with the knowledge of thousands, and likely as powerful as the Observer, and second only to the entity within the realm. One thing Michaela and Maurice share is their clairvoyancy, their ability to foresee events and the future, and together I believe they forged an alliance, with the foresight that the entity had caught on to Maurice's power, and was planning on eliminating him. That's when it happened, and Maurice was erased from the realm, the recently arrived Dredge consuming him, potentially on the entity's command. What Dredge didn't know is that this was all part of Maurice's plan. What Dredge couldn't have anticipated is that Maurice was now a being of higher power, capable of integrating with the fog itself with use of his third eye. Dredge, interestingly, is made up of lots of different body parts and stuff, but the main Dredge body is fog. From there, Maurice spent months whittling Dredge down from within, forcing it to act differently, unable to consume more for it to live on, and forcing it to result to this dull body, as the flavor text suggests. It seems the meat mass within Dredge can actually deteriorate and rot away, so once Maurice had done that, it had no other choice but to use something else. Whilst this was all happening, Maurice sent out messages through the only ways he could, placing up missing photos on different things such as milk cartons, hoping the survivors would see them. Two people in particular he wanted to take notice were Michaela and someone else new within the fog, somewhere. This is a mysterious character. In Tome 14's cutscene, we see Saku walk up to a mass of tentacles which imprison Maurice. She takes her blade and frees Maurice from them, relieving him of the tentacle restraints, and riding away on him with no word. There seemed to be some unspoken bond, and Saku seems to have come to Maurice's aid with very little reason aside just happenstance. But it could be something deeper. Possibly Maurice has promised in return some information on how to locate the Oni with his gathered intelligence. We don't actually have the tomes fully released yet, so it's unclear. But the point is that Saku saves Maurice from what seems to be the entity, or an extension of it. So Maurice is not dead. His physical body, although damaged, was very much alive, and was maybe being kept that way so the entity could learn what it had learnt. It's possible that Maurice was located by Saku as a result of Michaela and her boon magic. On Twitter, Behavior made suggestion that it was Michaela's doing, bringing back Maurice. Whilst I don't think she did some kind of horse resurrection spell, I think it's quite likely as a clairvoyant and with her boon magic, and maybe some kind of iridescent tool made from the fog, she was able to locate Maurice, and maybe reveal him with an aura, like she can do within the trials with her perk Clairvoyance. Whilst Maurice was trapped, he put in a lot of time to slowly overtaking Dredge and its body, replacing it with his own thoughts, and even replacing the different parts with horse parts to better fit Maurice's own look. The reason for the undead horse look is probably just because, much like Dredge, any of those pieces of meat that make it up aren't actually alive, but instead the fog itself, which is what Maurice now controls. The eye not moving could just be down to it being a literal eye, and not alive or functioning. Another notable feature are all the additional horse skulls featured on the skin. This is odd because where did they come from? As we established earlier, Maurice is the only horse in the realm. Well, this is where it gets even more interesting, and potentially further suggests how powerful Maurice has become. Maurice has not only gathered the understanding of the entity and the realm, but further has managed to bridge the multiverse, likely as a result of connecting with the fog. All those horse heads and hooves and different parts aren't just Maurice, but the Omni-Maurice, made up of Maurices that connected across the multiverse, and have now taken control of the Dredge. With this new body and ability, and with Maurice's casual return to Father Campbell's chapel, seemingly completely fine and in the same state he left, Maurice seems to have achieved near peak power, seeing into the fog, taking control of the Dredge, and now with its third eye set on the entity itself. Maurice is quite possibly the most powerful thing in the realm. This increase in power was somewhat hinted at also on Twitter, with the story being told of Maurice progressively getting larger and larger over time, before exploding across the universe, and likely the multiverse. During this time, he also appeared in things like the Hatch, the Twins, which is, and the Lockers. This all showing his presence and power within the realm now. His omnipotence now reaches the same to that of the entity possibly. It's possible he's even already overthrown the entity and now runs the realm himself, spanning universe-wide with his mind and soul, as if it were touching its every corner. Maurice is quite possibly the entity's biggest threat, and for all we know, could already be the entity. Well, I do hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think of this theory down below. Thanks, and goodbye.